Dan the Wheelman here, and my very extra special guest today is this. This is the 2025 BMW M5 Touring, which of course is BMW speak for station wagon. That's right, this is a proper sedan-based long roof wagon, just like, your grandparents, I guess, used to drive, or your parents or whatever. Don't see that many of these anymore, and you've never seen an M5 wagon in North America, and now we've got one, and that's awesome. Look at this thing, it looks incredible. It's got a twin turbo V8 with a plug-in electric powertrain as well, so you can cruise in full EV mode if you want to keep things quiet. But as I think we're going to find out on this drive, with over 700 horsepower and over 700 pound-feet of torque, plus all-wheel drive, 8-speed automatic transmission, those looks, especially from the rear, which has the crazy rear diffuser with quad tailpipes sticking out from under it, which is giving the Audi RS6 Avant a run for its money when it comes to eye-opening styling, that's for sure. Anyway, with all of that, this isn't really a car meant to blend in quietly with the crowd, even with this fancy silky matted paint job, which costs like $6 grand, which I guess we consider the starting price of this car, which is about 150 large thereabouts. $6 grand, what's a couple other grand, right? Well, I don't know, but anyway, even with that stealthy paint job, you can see those red brake calipers there. You got the big wheels, performance tires, big splitter, or huge intakes, I should say, in the front splitter there, blacked out grille. You can see that this car is probably up to some no good, so let's go find out. Ah, a station wagon. You have to love a station wagon. There's just something about a vehicle that can transport your goods like this can, up to about 1,600 liters of storage space if you flop the or drop the second row there, and still offer awesome driving dynamics that's low to the ground. And not only does it help with driving dynamics, lowers the center of gravity, it makes it easier to load the trunk than it would be in a higher riding crossover. So you want to keep that in mind as well. But this particular station wagon isn't really about moving people around in pure comfort. Doesn't have two, rear-facing rumble seats in the trunk like an old Volvo or Ford Taurus. It's not really. This is a performance vehicle above all else. And not to mention, there isn't actually that much more passenger space in the M5 Touring, read wagon, than there is in the sedan. So not even headroom, not even rear headroom. It's pretty much the same in those two vehicles. So it's not really, I guess, about that. It's more about the performance. But right now in the city, I've actually got it in one of the less, kind of performance-oriented modes. You could choose various modes for the hybrid system. There's hybrid, electric, and e-control. Those are all standard on the M5 and the M5 Touring. But if you opt for the M Drivers package, I believe it's called, you get Dynamic Plus and Dynamic modes within the hybrid system as well. And what those do, Dynamic is for kind of more fun driving on, winding country roads and stuff like that, whereas Dynamic Plus is actually more for track work, according to BMW. How many people are tracking their M5 Tourings? I'm not really sure, but anyway. But I actually have it in electric mode right now, which only activates the gas motor if you really accelerate hard or if you shift using these paddles on your own. Otherwise, it's meant to kind of keep it in E mode. E-control mode is another one, which is a little bit ambiguous, but what it basically means is it prioritizes charging the battery or maintaining charge over everything else. The best way to charge your battery this side of plugging in your M5 Touring is in e-control mode. That way you maintain your charge, or you can use the gas engine to charge the battery. As far as charging goes, BMW claims like 40 kilometers of EV driving. That's in the North American cycle. There's actually more if you're in the European cycle, but never mind. I actually saw 48 kilometers on a full charge here. So that's pretty good. And right now I'm going through those kilometers because I'm in electric mode. I'm in the city, don't need the gas engine. Keep in mind though that if you do cut out the EV motor, you actually sacrifice some power, 194 horsepower and over 200 pound-feet of torque if you decide not to use the EV motor at all. So obviously when you're in a performance driving environment, that's when you want to have all the engines, the twin turbo V8 plus the EV motor going, as much, full chat as they can. But I'm in e-control. I'm also in comfort mode here when it comes to the chassis, the steering, all that kind of stuff, because I am in the city. I've got energy regen set to mid. You can set it between mid Min or Max. Now in Max, that really kind of bogs down when you release the throttle. So that's really, again, for like kind of, you know, when you're in traffic and stuff like that. So I do have some regen as I'm driving as well. And of course, this being an M vehicle, you could select your own custom driving profiles with these two buttons on top of the steering wheel here, finishing this nice kind of metallic red. I love that, with these cool paddles behind. I don't think they're carbon fiber. They've got these neat grips on the back, which is kind of cool. So these two paddles here, they can, maybe you want to keep one for track use. Again, how many people are tracking their M5 Touring? I don't know. But maybe you want to keep one for track use and one for around town use, or one for track use, one for, you know, enthusiastic driving on a mountain road use, all that kind of stuff. So those are selectable here. But I've got chassis and comfort, steering comfort. That's what you want to set it in. I mean, I've got 20-inch wheels at the front, 21-inch wheels at the back. They are staggered both in terms of wheel size and tire width. Those do affect ride a little bit. That's some pretty big rolling stock. That does affect ride a bit, as do the hard performance summer tires I've got. So you want to make sure you give yourself as much comfort as possible when you're in the city and crashing over bumps and, you know, over manhole covers, train tracks, all that kind of stuff. And now this is just a regular station wagon. You know, it's not regular, but this is the most kind of everyday setting for this particular vehicle. And that's fine. Driver's seat position is great, as is so often the case with BMW. Wheel falls nicely in the hand. All the controls are tilted a little bit towards the driver, which I do appreciate. You have tilt and telescoping steering wheel, adjustable side bolsters for the seats here to keep you in place. The seats are heated and they are cooled, which at this price level, you know, upwards of $104,000, $150,000, they had better be. And you've got, you know, your dual mode, or I think it's a tri-mode climate control system in here actually as well, because they can control theirs back there too. Bowers & Wilkins audio comes as standard, which is pretty good, but there's actually less power from this than it used to be in the M5. This is 650 kilowatts. It used to be 1,450 kilowatts. I've got 18 speakers, so the sound system packs a little bit less punch than previous. I wonder if that has to do with just trying to save weight as much as possible. The weight of the new M5, you know, with its plug-in electric hybrid powertrain, with its, you know, the batteries that requires, the extra motors that requires. There's been a lot of talk about the weight. It does clock in at about 5,500 pounds, 5,300 if you go to the sedan. So I think BMW is doing everything they can to save weight in other ways, reducing speaker count maybe, changing the amplifier in the sound system, maybe the subwoofer, just to save weight as much as possible. So the sound is, you got to play a lot with the equalizers in here to really get it to feel like it is a premium audio system, and it, you know, and that's kind of a bit of a hassle. But I guess once you set those equalizers, assuming you listen to a certain type of music mainly, I guess you're good to go. But to lose some of that oomph over the previous models, it's a bit of a bummer.
And not only does it ride pretty well in town, the around town manners are helped by rear wheel steering, which rotates the rear wheels or swivels the rear wheels to help you, kind of reduce your turning radius, making parking easier, maneuvers through tight spaces in town easier. Than when you're at speed on the highway, that adds stability as well. And if I'm honest, I am impressed with how comfortable I'm feeling. I feel more comfortable in this M5 Touring than I did when I drove the standard M5 probably about 4 or 5 months ago over these same roads in this same city, my hometown of Vancouver. And it feels smoother to me than that one did. I could be misremembering, but that is how it's feeling. It shouldn't. I think everything is set the same suspension-wise and stuff in these two vehicles. So I'm not sure, but it feels nice over this kind of broken concrete, all that kind of stuff that you deal with in the city. And of course, you've got all the features you'd expect from a luxury vehicle like this. In addition to all the comfort features I talked about, I've got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, wireless charging, USB-C ports if I'd rather charge it that way as well. Memory seating. The only thing is, find it a little overdone in here when it comes to these light up plastic inserts I have. I mean, they do kind of interesting stuff, like when you put your hazards on, they all blink red. When you change drive modes, or when you use one of the more aggressive drive modes, they change color as well. They probably do some other things I don't even realize right now. But it looks a little bit overdone and almost a little cheap. I'd rather have like a carbon fiber insert in between the upper and lower dash, for example, or in the doors. I have some carbon fiber, but I think I'd want a little bit more. It just feels a little plasticky, feels a little sweaty. I don't love that. There's a lot of haptic stuff going on in here. Haptic on the wheels, haptic controls on the wheel, I should say. Haptic controls around the iDrive, control here. You've got the iDrive wheel, everything else is haptic. Oh, the volume is, and the volume is a standard scroll wheel, which I like. Haptic feedback on the seat settings, haptic feedback when it comes to your climate. All of it is just touch sensitive. And I think BMW is a little bit behind there. Haptics were kind of a big deal going on 5 years ago now, Cadillac with their Q system and others and so on. But now I think we're kind of going back a little bit more. We're starting to see the return of more, traditional press buttons, especially in higher end vehicles. And I think BMW should take some notes there, I hope, because I don't love all the haptic stuff. And of course, dual digital displays, one for your gauge cluster here and one for your infotainment cluster.
And while you don't have a variety of gauge style choices like you do on a Mercedes AMG E63 or, a Ford Mustang, for example, you can cycle through a ton of different data pages on here. You have your track timer, you've got your horsepower, you've got, tire pressure, you've got augmented reality, you can show your map, and you can cycle through all of that just with this wheel here. So while you can't switch through different gauge styles, which I do kind of like to do, I have to admit, at least you can easily cycle through the data being shown on here. And there's a ton of data that they show. And not only can you kind of bumble around town in all electric mode, but unless my eyes and ears are deceiving me, I'm on the highway now, as I mentioned, and I'm doing 90 kilometers an hour in EV mode. So this isn't just like EV to kind of help you get out of the house without waking up the neighbors, like a Lamborghini Revuelto, for example. This is an actual PHEV EV car when you want it to be, that can be driven in a number of instances in electric only mode. That is pretty cool. But since we are on the highway, I'm gonna kind of up the ante a little bit when it comes to drive modes to see what this is like as the pace gets a little bit quicker. So let's get to it.
Got my chassis, steering, and brake all set to sport now. So just to give it a little more kind of responsiveness. And I've got my drive logic still set to comfort, so the throttle isn't gonna have changed all that much. So yeah, steering is a little bit heavier now. Still not quite as much feel as I'd like. It's got a really big, thick steering wheel, and I feel a little bit disconnected that way. But the responsiveness is definitely there. It's got a very responsive front end, and of course, you've got the all-wheel steer system there with you as well to help with your stability while changing lanes, all that kind of stuff too. So on the highway here, it's nice. Sound-wise, it's not too bad. I have it on. The M sound is on. It's got a modifiable exhaust note. It's electronically boosted, but you only really hear it when you get on it. It's not like you've got this constant drone going on, and the cabin is fairly quiet even with those performance tires and big wheels. So that's good to know. I was a little concerned that it might be a little bit too drony on the highway, but so far I'm okay with it. Now, when I want to get that kind of blast of V8 exhaust or engine note, I can just give it some throttle, and I've got that, and that's pretty cool. Don't have to live with it on the regular. Then, of course, if you don't want to have to bother around with M1 and M2 buttons and so on, you hit the My Mode button. You can switch between road, sport, and track, and that has a couple of built-in presets for those specific conditions as well. I'm going to put it in sport here because I'm not on a track. And that just automatically changes various settings. It changes your gauge cluster a little bit as well. So I guess I kind of told a lie when I said there aren't a variety of gauge clusters, but it's nothing like what Mercedes offers still. And it changes up your heads-up display too. So if you want to just forget about the M1, M2 stuff and just go with the baked-in stuff, you can do that too, as I've done now. And if you really want to get into a little more hooliganism, you can even lock out the front axle to give you a rear-wheel drive vehicle. Now, a few other parameters get affected when you do that as well, like traction control, stability control, and so on. But if you want smoky drifts, you can do that too. So in the intro, I said over 700 horsepower and over 700 pound-feet of torque. More precisely, that's 717 horsepower and 738 pound-feet of torque for a claimed 0 to 60 time, or 0 to 97 kilometer an hour time, of about 3.2 seconds. And there is a launch control mode, so we can kind of see what that feels like. Go MDM button there, mash the throttle, let the indicator come up, and let her rip. That is quick. That is fast. Woo! They talk about weight. I don't think so. Don't really feel it there. And now we're on our way. We're going to activate manual mode here. 8-speed automatic transmission isn't actually the quickest shifting box. I wish there was a little more snappiness from the shifters. Even though I've got it in drivetrain sport mode here, could use a little more. Let's see what happens when we go to Sport Plus. Slightly better, but still not the snappiest shift time. But that kind of gets forgotten when you just let that V8, that twin turbo V8 and the EV motor kind of do their work, just yank you through this stuff at preposterously fast speeds for what is such a large vehicle. Certainly it is the kind of vehicle that you don't want to get stuck behind slow traffic, and it is just so raring to go pretty much at any instant. Just so much power on offer. I mean, the fact that you've got a station wagon, which ostensibly were originally developed to move people around more easily before minivans and SUVs are really a thing, with that much power and that much torque, is truly one of the more amazing things in the car world these days. It's just so rare. And BMW chose now, of all times, when car sales are low and SUVs and EV and all kind of stuff are taking over, have taken over, to bring the M5 here for like the first time now, I think, is pretty amazing stuff. There's even a boost button that when you hold it down, it gives you like max everything for a certain amount of time, as if there wasn't enough hooliganism to be had with all that power and performance. You can have a little more for a limited amount of time if you'd like. Call now, you know? Crazy stuff. This is a fun performance station wagon for sure. Why there aren't more of these? I mean, I know why there aren't more of these. They build what people buy in North America. People just don't buy these. But buy this one. Buy this one, because then maybe they'll bring us the M3 wagon, which they have in Europe. Now we're really talking. That is something I'd love to try as well. It looks spectacular, and from what I hear, it drives in a spectacular fashion too. So maybe they'll bring that here if they see this one sells well. So fingers crossed, please go buy one. I would, just don't have the disposable income at this time to be able to afford it. At the end of the day, you look behind you, realize you've got room enough for a hockey bag, even more if you fold down the seats, or you can just fold down the middle seats to 40-20-40 split, so you can fit longer items without losing an outboard rear seat. But again, lower lift over height, you're like, wow, look how practical it is, and fast and fun. Gotta love a station wagon, but you do have to ask. Performance-wise, it's pretty much identical to the sedan, but it costs more to get, like around $4 to $5 grand, I think, more to get the wagon than the sedan. So you want to keep that in mind. And then there's always going to be the question of the X5M, the SUV. Well, that one is more expensive than either the sedan or the Touring of the M5, because it's available right now only as a competition version, which is kind of like the higher spec of M. You can get M4 competition, M3 competition, and so on. There used to be an M5 competition. There isn't right now. We'll see what happens. But so that's more money for the X5 with less power and no PHEV. Yes, there's the XM, which uses, I think, a similar powertrain to this, but that thing is kind of ugly and super expensive. I'm not going to go there right now. But so you do want to think about that X5M. Plus, you've got, of course, the higher ride height, better performance probably in snowy conditions. If the snow's getting too high, less chance of bottoming out and so on. Not that that's going to be a huge deal. Even with this and all-wheel drive, it'll probably be okay. So you do have to keep all that in mind, I guess, when considering one of these. But what I will say is I'm not going to strike too many points against it for the weight thing. A lot of people are complaining about this thing's waistline. It's still faster than the old M5 was, so there's that, because you have all that extra power, and it's not like you really feel it moving through the turns. If you were to go to the track, maybe, especially if you were to go to the track regularly, but as I've said probably 100 million times in this video, who is really tracking their M5 station wagon? I don't know. I know BMW is all about, you know, the ultimate driving machine. You can track any one of our cars and so on, but come on, let's be honest. I think that's the only time you're really going to feel the weight. Otherwise, you'll know it, you'll learn the number, and you'll probably move on from there and just enjoy this car for what it is, which is a powerful, good handling, good looking, and pretty spacious performance station wagon / sedan. That's it. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to this quick look at the 2025 BMW M5 Touring. Hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. If not, no hard things, of course. You can follow me on Instagram at Dan the Wheelman, on Blue Sky at Dan the Wheelman, and of course, keep it locked to the Dan the Wheelman YouTube channel. Always fun new stuff going up here, there, and everywhere. So thanks again for tuning into this video. This is Dan the Wheelman signing off from Station Wagon.